It's been a very long time since I've been as excited about an animated series as I am about X-Men 97. Not only has it been the perfect follow-up to the iconic 90s X-Men the Animated Series, but the second season has furthered the legacy of another great run. Yeah, the last few episodes of Season 2 might be up for debate about not exactly being the perfect ending that we had in mind, but it's still worthy enough to warrant a couple of upcoming seasons already confirmed. Speaking about the way things end in Season 2, I can't get over the fact that the mighty Apocalypse eventually succumbs to a moody Eson impressed by the power of love. And Rogue subdues him like he's some second-tier villain once she's enhanced by the Celestial. But the important thing to note here is that Apocalypse isn't really dead, but merely contained within a Celestial gem, which means that you can't rule out his comeback. In this video, I'll explore the possibilities of a revival, and this time, I hope his resurgence will be fitting of his reputation. How does Season 2 leave the fate of Apocalypse? The ending of Season 1 had already teased Apocalypse as the big bad of Season 2, and the first few episodes totally kept up with the hype. A group of the X-Men, including the likes of Professor Xavier and Magneto, found themselves scattered across time in ancient Egypt, where they encountered En-Sabah-Nur, the young mutant fated to become Apocalypse. They attempted to prevent his rise, but the inevitable happens, and as he embraced his new avatar as Apocalypse, Magneto falls victim to his ruthlessness. Meanwhile, in the future timeline, the likes of Jean Grey and Cyclops encounter their son Nathan, guided by the Ascani clan, as they take on a future version of Apocalypse who's a tyrant. Eventually, it comes down to a battle in the current timeline of the 1990s, as the X-Men group together to take out a world-ending threat. Also, Apocalypse brought back Gambit as one of his horsemen, which further ups my excitement about the grand ending, and this is where I was left asking for more. The last two episodes literally made a fool out of Apocalypse. First, we see that he's struggling to completely take over the psyche of Gambit, and a part of him remains deep within. Next up, as Rogue, Nightcrawler, and Beast go to the ship to seek answers for a comatose Gambit, they encounter Eson, and a love-struck and determined Rogue manages to strike a deal. She gets empowered for one final battle in return for a sacrifice, which is her life. It's the life of Gambit for her own. As Apocalypse nearly takes over all the mutant heroes and threatens to kill Xavier, Rogue arrives just in time, and she absorbs his essence within a celestial gem. Gambit is back to his normal self, and Apocalypse is trapped in the gem and handed over to Cable for safekeeping. I was further disappointed to see Nightcrawler die instead of Rogue, as he volunteered to sacrifice himself for the life of his sister. And it's almost a happy ending, where Apocalypse is defeated by the power of love more than anything else. Why is the Crystal Prison a screenwriting hint? See, I'll give you the simplest argument here. Apocalypse being captured inside a gem is not enough to guarantee an end to his threat. Not to mention, a show doesn't seal a villain of this magnitude in an object and then forget about him. I mean, if you look at the death of someone like Magneto, it was quite definitive, suggesting that the writers probably aren't looking to revive him anytime soon. Also, Apocalypse is far too significant as a part of the X-Men mythology, and they may not be done with him just yet. Yeah, he's gone for now, but he's definitely not dead, and one tiny hiccup in the plan can get him back with a vengeance. Cable holding the crystal is not a coincidence. You know what bothered me the most about the end of Apocalypse in Season 2? All this while, Cable was supposedly the prophesied individual who would kill him, and all he does in the end is take possession of a gem containing him. I don't see it ending so easily, and I think that Cable is being given the crystal not as a mere coincidence. If you're familiar with X-Men lore, then you know how deeply Cable's entire storyline is connected with Apocalypse. His entire comic book origin is built on Apocalypse infecting him with a techno-organic virus as an infant. And this is what got him sent to the future in the first place. The shows follow the same trend, and I have a feeling that there's a lot more to his story than we're going to see ahead. Also, don't entirely rule out the fact that Cable can be corrupted by some means. We've seen the clone of Cable in the comics named Strife, and although his story doesn't exactly align with the context of the show, it might always be an innovative twist that fits right in. With Mystique in the picture, there's also the chance that he might be tricked by Mystique, posing as someone he trusts, to give up the gem, and if that happens, it's only a matter of time before Apocalypse is released. If the show plans to set up his entire backstory and the details of his clash with Apocalypse in the comics, then we might get an entire season of just that, and honestly, I wouldn't mind that at all. What Season 3 of X-Men 97 is already confirmed to bring in? Season 3 might be a year away, but we already have some vague details about the storyline that might be followed and the characters that might be introduced. Let me take you back to the Season 2 finale's quick mid-credits scene. Here, a couple major turning points have been revealed, starting with the mutant-hating Graydon Creed as the new president of the United States. However, the biggest shocker comes from the form of Mystique, who's impersonating Dr. Valerie Cooper. She's seemingly killed the real Valerie Cooper, and from the looks of it, that smirk on her face, she has some sinister plans ahead of her. I'm sure a significant part of Season 3's earlier episodes will be spent on uncovering her motive, and there will be quite a few interesting comic book story arcs that can be followed. She might be after the life of Graydon Creed, who also happens to be her son, and she could be the one to lead the Brotherhood of Mutants. This is another significant teaser about Season 3 that we learned during the events of Comic-Con. We've seen the likes of Blob, Pyro, Toad, Avalanche, and Surge, who are part of the Brotherhood of Mutants. And we also caught a glimpse of a world that's hostile to mutants, with a sentinel threat being used as a state mechanism to come down on mutants. I know what you're thinking, none of this has any direct involvement of Apocalypse, and I completely agree with you. However, he's never truly gone, is he? Just imagine the circumstances if he's brought back somehow. He might be wary of the X-Men and plan things better this time around. And the human-mutant conflict alienating the X-Men further from their goal of protecting the world might just be the right move. It'll be very interesting if Apocalypse is somehow brought back, or it turns out that the whole imposter plan is actually his, and Mystique is merely working as his pawn. I'm probably thinking a bit too far out, but you never know what the show has in store. The Government Sentinel angle. Where could Apocalypse slot back in? I just told you about the Sentinel threat that looms large, as Graydon Creed's presidency doesn't exactly have the best time in store for mutants. In the scene where the Brotherhood of Mutants show themselves, you can also see a Sentinel decked up in the patriotic colors as it takes on mutants, presumably operated as a tool to hunt them down. Clearly, this is a crisis of the highest order, and the diplomacy of Professor Xavier might not be enough to deal with this one. How long before a frustrated mutant finds a way to break open the crystal holding Apocalypse? It can literally be anyone from Mystique looking to fulfill her own agenda, or a disillusioned mutant who seeks to bring him back to exterminate humans in revenge. After all, who better than Apocalypse to deal with simpleton threats like Sentinels, especially if this also allows him an opportunity to get his revenge for being played so bad by Rogue in this season. Let's not forget that Season 2 also teased the Onslaught saga quite a bit, and in the end we were left without any mention of this mighty villain. If Onslaught is somehow introduced in Season 3, Cable might be pushed to a moral breaking point where he's forced to release Apocalypse, because only a power of his magnitude can stop a greater threat. A celestial or cosmic intervention could free him up. A lot of Apocalypse's rise and fall in this show is courtesy of celestial intervention. The access to this supreme power and technology turned En-Sabah-Nur into the mighty Apocalypse, and then Eson's sudden disregard for the earlier agreement empowered Rogue to have him contained. What if Eson changes his mind again and decides to free Apocalypse? He did have a purpose that's not going to be fulfilled by Rogue and Gambit reuniting or Nightcrawler sacrificing himself, and he might take it upon himself to initiate the comeback of Apocalypse to establish the universal order that he seeks to implement. There could be other celestial or cosmic interventions as well, and all I'm trying to say here is that powers far beyond the understanding and control of the X-Men might be instrumental in setting him free. The Horsemen or other cultists might set him free. Apocalypse might be trapped, but his loyalists are still out there, and they're sworn to make sure he's brought back in such an event. Also, little's known about his other Horsemen because ideally Gambit's not supposed to be the only one. If there's a twist in the tale, we might find out the presence of more, and they might attempt a ritual that is powerful enough to break him free of his temporary prison. And Cable might be a helpless bystander in such a scenario. I love how this possibility keeps his return chances grounded in mysticism and cult activity, but actually goes well with his overall narrative. Time travel or alternate timeline. The MCU is literally thriving on the multiverse, and there's nothing stopping X-Men 97 from trying the same. If you consider an alternate universe, Apocalypse might still be at large, and he might just find a way to infiltrate this one as well. Moreover, the abundance of time travel in the show makes it quite possible for Apocalypse to make an appearance from another timeline, where he's not been captured yet. I know this complicates the overall story, but you can't deny the thrills on offer if something of this kind actually were to take place. What if the gem that traps him is simply a Trojan horse? You have to pardon me for this one because I'm fresh off watching The Odyssey, and the Trojan horse analogy has dawned on me recently. Apocalypse was nearly winning the fight with all the mutant heroes turned to his obedient minions, except for Xavier and Rogue. He barely lost out, and only because the celestial Eson chose to take a chance with Rogue for some reason that doesn't really sound very logical in the first place. But trapped in a gem is hardly the end for someone like him. We've seen across comic books and even in this animated series that Apocalypse has repeatedly survived by transferring his consciousness into new hosts and artifacts. The Jewel could simply be hiding a vessel for now, before the next opportunity comes along. It'll be a lot worse if the Jewel just sits there among the X-Men when Apocalypse is finally unleashed by one of his followers or well-wishers, or someone who simply wants to use him. There's also an interesting fan theory that talks about how the gem might contain a seed of Apocalypse that can grow and emerge when it's exposed to sufficient mutant energy. The show's already established his soul transfer capability, so this shouldn't come entirely as a surprise. Has the show ever let a death stick? Well, to be fair, you can't really take death seriously in this show, right? Earlier in Season 1, it was Gambit with his great sacrifice, and his death was reversed soon enough as Apocalypse revived him as a Horseman. As for Magneto, his death seems as decisive as it gets, but I don't know if they'll find a way to bring him back as well. With time travel involved, there's always an opportunity for a random comeback anyway. But what I'm really trying to get at here is that death is not permanent in X-Men 97, and Apocalypse isn't even dead to begin with. You see, Marvel Animation doesn't need a corpse to sell a death sequence, and Apocalypse, trapped in some special gem in the care of Cable, is hardly secure enough to end his story arc for good. I'm quite optimistic about the chances of Apocalypse making a comeback at some point in some form. There are far too many amazing comic book storylines that feature Apocalypse, and it would be a waste if the show doesn't utilize it to a good effect by bringing him back. Not to mention, the fans were disappointed by the way he was brought to an end, and I believe that a villain of his stature deserves a fitting destruction that almost endangers the entire world and nearly kills the X-Men. As of now, it's an agonizing waiting game as we stick around for a third season, which is expected to be released in 2027. At least we have a promising Marvel animated series to look forward to. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Apocalypse reappearing in the third and fourth season of X-Men 97, and also share your views on the ending of season 2. If you liked the video, please hit like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any more of our marvelous videos. Stay safe, and as always, stay marvelous.